So poker club.
Yeah.
Then tried to start a cheese factory in the Philippines.
How'd that?
That didn't work.
Fail.
I still think
Was
it's
it
a good
cow's
idea.
milk, cheese, or
Yeah.
all
So we were
different
gonna
types?
import whole milk powder from New Zealand and process it into cheese locally, and then sell and distribute in Southeast Asia because there was a free trade agreement. Long story short on that, the financing got goofed, and by goofed I mean Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. I was going to take $1 million in debt from the U.S. government, but by taking it, I had to do everything above board. So telling a Philippine contractor no bribes and your vendors can't bribe anyone was a bit of a shock to them, and it's just normal doing business. It's not like nefariousness. It's like, yeah, you have to pay a little extra to get your paperwork done and to get these permits, and that's just how things work. It's not like, oh, their system's crappy. It's like, yeah, it's just how it happens. So I decided rather than risk all of my investors' money, better to take a 50% haircut, which really, really painful conversations, because like they've trusted, it's the ultimate sign of trust of we're going to invest in your idea.
My money.
And it was the first time I really failed, and it was brutal because I knew it was the right idea, but it's still really painful to tell these people that trusted you that like it's not going to work. I failed because there's no one else. You're in charge of it. That's that. The good news was that I learned a ton from failure and applied to business school, and then consulting.
Business school where?
University of Virginia.
It's okay.
So yeah,
Great business school.
Yeah.
UVA.
UVA is great.
How'd you get in after failing out of Wisconsin?
So hey, I graduated. Take it easy. I think it was the eclectic background that
The holistic approach helped you in the admissions process?
Well, if it's all bankers and consultants and accountants, they need that one weirdo.
You were the weirdo.
Oh yeah,
You're the token weirdo.
Well, and the crazy thing was
That's usually me.
So I knew as an American overseas, like, yeah, you stick out like a sore thumb. But it never occurred to me that being a Midwesterner in another part of the country also makes you stick out like a sore thumb. So my wife lived in New York and New Jersey, and when I would like hold the door for someone, people would give me like the weirdest look, like, get the fuck out of my way. What are you doing? And I'm like, I was just trying to be nice.
Yeah.
It's a Midwestern thing.
Yeah.
And in the South, I don't own khakis. I'm not really a pastel sweater guy, and I use a lot of sarcasm.
Uh-huh.
Those are all like faux pas
It
in
didn't
the South.
translate, huh?
So, yeah, like I knew it was going to be weird when I was playing golf with a guy who was a classmate of mine. That was like the second week. So like we're all getting to know each other, but we'd played a couple times. And he hit a really good shot. And I was like, oh, nice shot, cocksucker. And he just like looked at me like, you've offended my honor, and like just went weirdly quiet the rest of the round. I was like, dude, if I treat you like a normal person, that means we're not friends.
Yeah, right.
If I say
That's
this
the
to you,
ultimate compliment.
right, it's like, hey, you, man. Yeah. That's how I know we're friends.
Yeah.
So that was a culture shock in a different way. And then the biggest was going into consulting. Where like, hey, startup, entrepreneur, school, professional. And it's like there are rules and requirements, like be at these meetings. You can't like, there's all this stuff and structure that you don't really learn about in school. Yeah. You're just like, hey, I was a smart guy and I was hired, so they clearly wanted me. Mm-hmm. And now like there's this whole new culture and system to learn. And it was just a really like jarring. And when you mention, when you're a pro football player, like can't miss practice for anything. Same thing in consulting. It's like, hey, you have a limited amount of vacation days in PTO, but like implied in that is it's frowned upon if you use any of that. When we first started talking, I was curious, how was your transition from like, hey, you're a college athlete. You're clearly good at what you do. You're drafted in the first round, but now you go from like college to professional. Is it kind of like going to an office? Is it like, hey, are there meetings and There's all this
Yeah,
structure.
I would say that pro football is like college football, but more so. But college football, you have class in the morning. So you work out 6 a.m. to 7:30, then you go to class during the day, and then like 2 o'clock, you come to the facility, and then you've got like an hour of meetings and 2.5 hours of practice, and then you got study table, and you're done. Like, so your amount of time during the day that you spend on football is maybe 4 hours. All of a sudden, you go to the pros, and you don't have that class thing. So instead of doing 4 hours of school, you're doing 4 hours of meeting. And so you're just doing way more football. It's the same like seriousness, it's the same workouts, it's the same practices, but just more of it.
Okay.
And so it's serious. Like,
yeah, it's a job.
it's a job. It really is. I mean, the coach is worried about getting fired every single day. I mean, NFL coaches are constantly getting fired. Players are getting cut every single day. And so everybody in the building is walking on eggshells thinking that at any moment, this could be my last day. Like, see you later. I got to go home to the family and tell them, hey, we're moving again. I know that you really have enjoyed the schools this year, but we're going back to Atlanta.
Yeah, or wherever will take me.
Hopefully I don't have to go back to college and go to like some tiny little school in the middle of nowhere that my family's not going to have any friends.
If you're always sort of in that on eggshells, like new guy mode, is it hard to make friends?
It is, because if you're a new guy, you're so like stressed about every day getting cut. And if you're an old guy, you don't want to make friends with the new guys for fear that you're going to spend a lot of investment time making friends with the guy that's going to get cut. So playing 11 years in Cleveland, you would always wait to kind of really dive into friendships with people until after training camp was over, because in training camp you have 85, 90 guys, and then it cuts down to 53 during the season. So a third roughly of your roster gets cut, and like, see you later, I'll never see you again. And so if you invest a lot of time and emotional capital in all these different players every year, and then they get cut, like, it is hard. Like, emotionally, you just become detached from the game because you're always losing these friends. And it's the same thing with like the wives. They become really good friends with all these different wives in training camp, and all of a sudden these people get cut.
They're gone.
And they're gone forever. And
It's like, oh, you're not going to see each other again.
It's almost like being a military brat. You know, I've had friends that moved all over the country with military, and they never had really deep friendships because they were always moving. And so they never had a chance to really spend years and years developing friendships. Everything's like more surface. And so what you find on NFL teams is the guys that have been around the longest on that team have really close relationships because they've been on the same team 4 or 5 years. They probably have kids that are about the same age, their wives are friends. But the guys that are younger, they just haven't had that time like invested in the vets and vice versa.
So is it like positional?
It really is positional, because that's where you spend the majority of your time.
Yeah, so I mean, like, you're in the same meeting rooms, and it's like, all right, we've been in the same meeting rooms for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, at this point, but even then, it's the not for long league.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, at any moment, they're like, oh, sorry, you're getting traded.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, wait, what?
So even if you're good, like, they can trade you. Like, if you suck, you'll get cut. But if you're good, you still might get traded.
Was there anyone from, I mean, you came in with, was you and Brady Quinn in the first round? So is there anyone from like, you were 13 years?
11 years.
11. Anybody that was around for this, like the same period of time, more or less?
No, so
because it's
my
super rare
longest-
for you
yeah,
to be
I
that
think
in one place.
My longest teammate that I played with, I think, was Alex Mack, and he was with me for like 6 years, maybe.
They got traded to the Falcons, right?
Yeah, but the problem is every time you change a coach, usually the coach comes in and wants to bring in his own guys. Just like if you're a new CEO, you're going to bring in your own team, and then they a lot of times they look at who are the bottom performers and they get the haircut, and you bring in the new people. And the same thing in the NFL. Every time you have a new head coach, new GM, if you're an elite player, they'll probably keep you, but sometimes even then, like, they're going to look at your contract and they might trade you somewhere else, or they may cut you. But the bottom guys, they're turning those guys over constantly.